This video should help you with the Boxplot homework, which is section 3.5. So, beginning with the homework, looking at the first question in the homework, notice it asks us to identify the shape of the distribution, part A, and part B, determine the 5-number summary. Let's just focus in on the first part. Notice that this box plot here has a whisker to the left that is longer than to the right. That means the distribution is skewed left. Let's go ahead and reload another problem. Here we have a situation where the whisker on the right is longer than the whisker on the left. So this distribution is skewed right. Here we have a situation where the whisker on the left and the whisker on the right are of equal length, so we say that this distribution is symmetric. Okay, now let's move on to part B of this type of question. It says to determine the 5-number summary. Also note that it says to assume that each number in the 5-number summary is an integer. So we go ahead and we have our answers down there. Let's see how we get to those answers. So let's just bring up the graph here, and there we have it. First, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit better so we can see this graph. So remember, over here is the minimum. Right here is Q1. That's the median, or Q2. This is Q3. And since we don't have any outliers here, this is the maximum. So we've got to use a little intuition about this graph. Now, we're starting at 0 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these are all in increments of 1. And remember, the question also said that each one of the 5-number summaries is going to be an integer. So I just look down here and I can tell that my minimum equals 0. Now I look here, and since this is 11, 12, my Q1 is equal to 12. And then so that's 12, 13, 14, so that means my Q2, which is the median, is 14. And then I look at my Q3, so this is 20, so this has to be 19, so my Q3 has to be 19, and my max has to be 20. It's a little bit jumbled, but we get the idea, so let's go back and look and see if our results are the same. So moving back, notice we have our values 0, 12, 14, 19, and 20 for the 5-number summary. Okay, so this next question here points out, it says the data represents the age of world leaders on the day of their inauguration. Find the 5-number summary and construct a box plot for the data. Then comment on the shape of the distribution. So, as we have discussed in class, the easiest way to do this is to use the data capabilities on your calculator. First, enter the data into L1. Then remember, you go to var stats, calculate, and you'll get your 5-number summary. The minimum is 41, Q1 is 43, the median or Q2 is 47, Q3 is 55, and the max is 69. And as you can see, this is consistent with the answers that the textbook it came up with. Next, we calculate the inner quartile range, which is Q3 minus Q1 and we come up with 12. Next, we calculate the upper and lower fences by the prescribed formula. Those calculations reveal that we have a lower fence of 25 and an upper fence of 73. Judging from our data, no values fall below the lower fence of 25, nor do any of the values exceed the upper fence of 73. So therefore, there are no outliers in this box plot. So here's the idea. We've got to draw a number line that includes all the values. So we have a minimum of 41 and a max of 69. So we're going to go ahead and put 40 on the far left and 70 on the far right. So halfway in between there is 55. Now remember, we draw a vertical line at Q1, which is 43, which is approximately right there. Next, we draw a vertical line at Q3, which is 55. Now we enclose this into a box. Remember, the median is somewhere in there at about 47. Now remember, we draw a horizontal line from Q1 to the lowest number that is greater than the lower fence, which is 41. That just happens to be our minimum in this case. Next, we draw a horizontal line from Q3 to the value that is within the upper limit, which just happens to be our max of 69. Now we have a rough sketch of our box plot, which appears to be skewed right because the whisker on the right is longer than the whisker on the left. So this is consistent with the answer B here, as we can zoom in a little bit here, which shows a box plot that is skewed right. We could be a little more specific and verify that these numbers here on the number line correspond to our Q1, median, and Q3, as well as the max and the min. So we get a pretty good idea of the rough drawing of the box plot, because if we look at the other two answers, here A shows a symmetric box plot and C shows a box plot that is skewed left. Remember, our diagram was skewed right, which is consistent with B. And if we scroll on down here, and you notice that it says B is also the answer, that our distribution is skewed to the right. Again, consistent with our drawing that we made of the box plot.